Well, she is recognized as one of the most glamorous television stars over the past 4 decades.
That's right. Over the years, she's not only brought the drama to the small screen, but also attention to many worthwhile causes. And right now, she's starring in the Dixie Swim Club at the Alhambra Dinner Theater. Please welcome Morgan Fairchild to the show. Morgan.
Well, thank you, guys. Lovely intro. Thank you.
Well, we are so flattered to have you, and thank you for taking the time to come out and join us.
My pleasure.
So the Dixie Swim Club is at Alhambra right now. First, for those who may not know about that, tell me about the show.
Well, it's a really fun show, and I did a different version of it in Kansas City recently too, and audiences just love this show. It's amazing. It's 5 women who were on the college swim team together, hence the name Dixie Swim Club, and they get together every year for 1 weekend in August at the Outer Banks at this same cottage every year. And so you see them first at age 44, then at 50, then at 49, then at 54, and then at 77. So you kind of see the trials and tribulations of the friendship, what they weather. They're all very different types of people. So it's one of those things where people come up after the show and said, "Oh, you were my sister." I know.
I can recognize myself in you.
A lot of people would just say, I know somebody just like that. And so, and a lot of men come up and say, "I didn't want to come because, my wife had a chick show, And they said, "I laughed more than she did." So, I mean, men enjoy it too. I mean, it's kind of the foibles of humanity, it's not just women.
And I was asking you in the commercial break, how was Jacksonville? How you're liking Jacksonville? And you're no stranger to Jacksonville. You've been to the Alhambra Club back in the 70s.
I played the Alhambra in 73. I did 4 shows there in 73. I was just getting divorced, and they offered me these jobs, and I was sort of trying to figure out what I'm going to do with my life. But I had just gotten divorced, and so I just changed my name to Morgan Fairchild. And it was the first theater where I worked as Morgan Fairchild, and nobody knew me as anything else, so nobody had to get used to calling me anything else. And I just stayed all year. They were terribly kind to me. We had lovely shows. I got to work with good people, Bob Denver, Artie Johnson, Tab Hunter, and it was really a fun time in my life.
And you've seen the city just grow, obviously, since you've been back.
Oh, it looks nothing like 73. I mean, it's just amazing.
Yeah, the Alhambra on Beach Boulevard was probably by itself for about a 2 square mile there.
Kind of.
Yeah.
Kind of. Yeah.
It's just amazing, though. Obviously, a big fan. I've since '73 at Alhambra. Obviously, your resume is massive. I remember obviously seeing you on countless different shows. Not only the shows you starred in, but you were guest starring in guest roles and cameos in almost every show I watched growing up, and it's just crazy to see. I love seeing an actress love the craft so much that you stay in it and stay doing it, because the stage at Alhambra is so intimate, and that's what I want to know. Like, you've done so many big things, but talk about what it's like to be at the Alhambra in that intimate theater and have the fans and the crowd right there.
Well, it's really interesting. It's fun. I mean, when I was a kid, I grew up in a small theater that was totally in the round. And that's part of the thing, too, because the Alhambra is a 3/4 thrust. So you always have to be very careful about the audience all around you. But, they're right on top of you. So, I mean, the immediacy of the laughter is there. And it's fun. And like, I've done big tours of Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, and I did a big tour of The Graduate a few years ago. So you're playing 3,000 to 4,000 seat houses and, pushing it to the back of the house, and here, you lift an eyebrow, they see it.
Right. So. It's very intimate. It's very special for people like us to go be able to see somebody like you. We were watching a clip a second ago. I've been on Dallas. We talk about the appearances. Curtis was alluding to that you've made, even on Friends. We have a clip to show what that was like when you made an appearance. When you see this, what was this like for you in the moment doing something like this?
Oh, well, we had a lot of fun doing Friends. When they first offered me the part, the show was not a big hit yet, and all my friends were saying, "Oh, you're too young to play that guy's mother. You don't want to go do that." And but I'd seen the show, and I'd seen that it had. The kids were very talented individually, but they were also very good as an ensemble, which is sort of 2 different things. And so I said yes, and then sure enough, the show became a big hit. The 2 Matthews came over to me in a Blockbuster record store and said, "You got us in the top 5." They promoted my appearance very heavily. "You got us in the top 5. And so it was always great because the writing was always good. You come in and they're not just using your name to help with ratings, that they're, the writing was always good. I mean, and so they would always give great things. And, my absolute favorite one is, is Kathleen Turner as my husband. It was great.
The craft of acting though, because I'm listening to you talk about it and the terms you're using and stuff, like that is what I don't know, I'm enthralled with, because it's to do it and to do it as well as you've done at the top of the craft. What I just want to know, as far as like what you've seen, obviously the change in Jacksonville, but the change in the industry, and look at how, you know, the shows you were on with social media now compared to then. Like, think about what it would have been like to do the shows back then with social media now. Would you be able to get away with the same stuff?
Well, there are a lot of shows that would have gotten canceled right away that would never have become big hits. All in the Family would never have gotten to be a big hit. They would have canceled it because the ratings weren't instantly there. Dallas, Dynasty, those shows would have been canceled because, you know, they didn't just launch out of the pad as big hits, and so nobody would give them the time now. But it was, you know, it was very interesting. When I first got out to LA, like in '77, there was so much creativity going on. Back then, they also had independent producers, Gary Marshall, Norman Lear, people who, you know, Aaron Spelling, who created product. Now the networks want to own the product, and they don't want to see anything much from an outside producer. But I remember when I first got out there, maybe my third job was Happy Days, and I got to be Fonzie's girlfriend for the day. You know, it's like, it was really fun. And they're so nice. So every time I would be back on the Paramount lot, I would go over to visit. And so one day I'm over there, and Henry comes over and says, "Hey, do you have to go anywhere?" And I said, "No." And he says, "Stay and watch our guest star. He's just amazing." So I stayed and watched this guy work all afternoon, just so I could tell him he's a genius. You know, cut to 8 months later, I get a phone call from the agent. "Well, good news and bad news." I said, "What's the good news?" He says, "Well, you got that TV movie you wanted," and blah, blah, blah. I said, "Well, what's the bad news?" He says, "Well, Gary Marshall has this new show, and nobody knows anything about it. It's all under wraps, and he wants you to come on, but they don't want to give you a contract, and they only want to pay top of the show, and you're making so much more money than that now, and we just don't think you should do it." And I said, "Well, what's the name of it?" He said, "Mork and Mindy." And I said, "That's Robin Williams' show." He says, "Who's Robin Williams?" There was a time. And, you know, and so I said, "Don't tell Gary, Robin Williams is a genius. I'd work for free to work with Robin Williams." You know, so I go on, and it's like I'd gone over to watch the taping of the first show, because it wasn't on the air yet. You know, nobody knew if it would work. And so I go over, and I'm watching the taping, and I can see Robin over there on the break, you know, with all his Topanga Canyon friends with everything pierced and purple mohawks and everything. Go great with your shirt. You know, and looking at me, and I know they're thinking, "Boy, he really sent me Miss White Bread America here." You know? So anyway, so we do the table read, which goes well. We start blocking, and I realized right away that, like you're talking about acting, I realized right away that everybody they would start with the script, and then Robin would go off with whatever. And everybody would just stand back and watch him go until he'd start petering out, and then the director would say, "Let's get back to the script," you know, because Robin will never admit that he's petering out, you know. And so when I got to block my scene, you know, we started off, and then he threw something at me, and I threw something back, and he threw something, and I threw something, and he's looking at it, he's throwing, you know, and we're just doing one-liners and ad-libs, and he comes over and he grabs me and he throws me in the air and says, "Mama, you're one of me," you know. It's like, because I grew up in the theater, so I'll ad-lib with him, you know, and so we just, you know, we go back and forth, and so it was one of the great fun things to be on a cutting edge on a show that was really breaking a lot of barriers, and a lot of the stuff, if you put down, like, you know, best of Mork and Mindy, a lot of it would be our stuff from the first year, a lot of which is ad-lib. And then David Letterman came on and did a guest star on it, playing like an Est leader. So it was like, it was always interesting, always interesting. And Chris Reeve, who I had known in New York, because he was doing Love of Life when I was doing Search for Tomorrow. We had the same agent. We'd go out for auditions together. And Chris and Robin had been roommates at Juilliard. So Chris would stop by and visit the set. By now he's Superman, you know, and, you know, he would call me from London and say, "You'll never believe they're really bulking me up," because, you know, Chris was like a tall, lanky, Abe Lincoln kind of guy, you know, like 6'4" and like not an ounce of fat on him, and suddenly he's Superman, you know. So he would come by and visit, and it was a great time, you know.
Do you have a book? And I am kicking myself if you have it and I haven't read it.
No, I haven't.
Have you ever thought about writing down these incredible stories?
I've thought about it, but a lot of times all they want is like dirt. They want dirt on everybody, and I don't really want to do dirt.
Well, the heck with them. You know, it's like one of those things you said about some of the shows, right? They never would have survived with various and whatnot. just write the book. I mean, I think so many
I could
people
listen
would.
to stories
I know,
forever.
that's what I was just saying. The producer is giving us a wrap, and I'm like, do we have time for one more story? But I don't.
Mork and Mindy was my favorite.
And Robin
It was
Williams,
great
what
fun.
an amazing guy he must have been to know
He
and work
was a
with.
doll. He was the sweetest man. And, you know, and I was rehearsing a show in Kansas City when they called, and CNN called and wanted me to come on and talk about him, you know, when he passed.
Yeah.
It was very sad. He's a lovely, lovely man. What you saw was what you got, the sweetest man in the world.
We all have a little spark of madness, and we
Yeah.
should hold on to it.
Well, I'll tell you what, you are just a delight. Thank you so
Well, thank
much.
you.
Such a pleasure
Thank
to have
you.
you. You're so kind, and you are a talent in your own right, so we're honored to have you.
Well, thank you very much.
for being here. We
being
really
here.
do appreciate it.
And remember, you can see Morgan Fairchild star in the Dixie Swim Club now at the Alhambra. The show runs through September 24th. You can find more information and buy tickets by visiting alhambrajacks.com.